Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tech Gamers World. In this video, we're going to be unboxing and reviewing the Sony PlayStation Portal Remote Player. Super excited to check this out as I've been in the market for one for a while now. So let's get it started. So before we start looking at the box, let's talk about the PlayStation Portal. This is a remote player. It allows you to play PlayStation games from your Sony PlayStation 5 without the games actually being installed on the device. What it does is it streams the games from your PlayStation system to the remote player. So the remote player must have internet connectivity, as does the Sony PlayStation 5. Now, this device retails for about 200 US dollars in January 2024. They are really difficult to find right now because of the excitement around the device and the typical stock problems and shipping delays that occur when a new entertainment system, video game system, comes out these days. It's been the norm for a while now. That happened with the Sony PlayStation 5, the Sony PlayStation 4. It's always been a thing. So for the first couple months following the release of a video game system, they are super hard to find. But I fortunately found one via Sony Direct, and I used one of those stock tracking websites to find the device at MSRP. Now, you can find these online from some retailers, some places like eBay, Walmart, Amazon. If they are selling for anything over 200 United States dollars, do not buy it because you are just supporting scalpers who buy them up in stock and sell them for a higher price than MSRP, which to me is a hard no. I will never pay more than the manufacturer's suggested price that they sell it for. So that's just my opinion on that. So let's get it started here. So here is the box for the PlayStation Portal. It features the typical white and blue that PlayStation is known for on their boxes. It says PlayStation Portal Remote Player. Then it has it in other languages for PS5. Now, super important, this device will only work in conjunction with the Sony PlayStation 5. You have to have one. It has to be connected to the internet. If you don't have one, this device will not do anything. You can see here, it even shows you we have the little PS5 icon and the Wi-Fi icon, and it says required. PlayStation 5 console sold separately, screen content simulated, and then it has it in other languages again. On the top is just the blue. The side here, we see the contents, PlayStation Portal remote player, USB cable, and printed materials. On the back here, we have some information about the PS5. Put the PS5 Portal, put the PS5 in the palm of your handheld gateway to your PS5 games. Get access to all the games on your PS5 console over your home Wi-Fi. So then there's, important stuff about that down here. Basically, I can summarize it for you. The PlayStation Portal remote player can stream compatible games that are installed on your PS5 console. PlayStation Portal requires broadband internet or high-speed internet with at least 5 megs for use. So that's pretty slow internet. That's pretty impressive if that's actually the case. What they're typically going to recommend is a high-speed connection of at least 15 megs is recommended. So 15 megs down and 15 megs up is technically considered high-speed internet. Now, to me, that's super slow. You typically will only see that with DSL or places that are really, remote. I would suggest you have at least 50 megs up and down, or if you can, 100 megs up and down from your internet service provider. Just for, internet connections, because you're going to want the faster downloads, uploads, especially if you're using the device outside of your house. Now, inside your house, if you're connected to Wi-Fi, you want it to be at least 50 megs up and down, depending on your Wi-Fi. Now that's kind of what they're talking about there. They're saying more the internal connection, because your internal Wi-Fi connection is what's important. It streams the data from the PlayStation 5 to the device over your home Wi-Fi. So if your Wi-Fi is jittery or slow, you're going to notice because it's streaming in real time. So that's super important. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more. But you want to basically make sure you've got a solid Wi-Fi coverage throughout your house where you're using this system. If you don't, you're going to know. So I'll touch on that a little bit as we delve into this here. So let's go ahead here and get this box opened up, shall we? I've got my trusty unboxing gloves on. So we'll go ahead here and cut this open. And I'm always careful when I open the boxes, because if I ever decide to sell the device, I'm actually going to go ahead and open the other side too. I can push the there we go. All right. So what Sony did was they put a box in a box. Now this is the decorative box that the device itself comes in. So, this is the outer package with the sales material, and basically, make it look all fancy. And then the inside box is just gray with PS remote player for PS5 with a little QR code. And back here, it basically says some more information here. PlayStation 5 console sold separately. So these are the requirements. Wi-Fi connection, again, more of the same. That's on the outside of the box. Games must be playable on a PS5 and installed on a PS5. Games that require a VR headset or special peripherals are not compatible with this product. Always update the system software on your PS5 console. We'll check all that. System software of the product is licensed to you, so that's all licensing agreements. And again, they stress the compatible hardware is only the PlayStation 5. That is super duper important. And I can see where the confusion would lie, because if you have someone who sees this and who's not super technical, they may say, "Oh wow, look at that. Buy it," not realizing that, you need to have a PlayStation 5, which is a $500 investment, give or take. So let's go ahead here and pull it out. They have the typical Sony PlayStation stuff there. All right, make sure there's nothing in the box there. There's not. We'll go ahead and put these off to the side. All right, let's get to it now. So we're going to go ahead here and pop off the cover. And under the underside here, which is always important to check, let's see what they have. This is the charging cable. So this is a USB-C to USB-C charging cable, which means a couple of things. One, you do not see a charging adapter power brick for this. They do not include one. So I'm going to go ahead right there and ding Sony for that, because that to me is something that really irks me. All devices these days don't include power adapters because they make the assumption that you have one based on one of your other devices. Now, that's not always the case. Not everybody has devices that are, in this case, USB-C charging cables. So I'm going to have to supply my own. Now, I fortunately have a few, but again, not everybody else does. So let's go ahead now and open up the PlayStation 5 Portal. All right, it's time to take out the PlayStation Portal. So let's go ahead here and pull it out of the box. Before we get to the opening of that, let's see what's underneath. Always super important to check all the packaging contents. Here is the instructions for the PlayStation Portal remote player. Just health and safety, wireless networking, a lot of information here. I recommend reading through. Super important here is the one thing I know it's hard to see, charging the product. So super important. USB cable to USB port. They're telling you to charge it through the PS5 console. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we get to it. Specifications here, 8-inch full HD LCD screen, USB port, headset jack, built-in stereo speakers, 802.11 ABGNAC, PlayStation Link, 2.4 gigahertz, approximate 2 hours and 30 minutes of battery time, charge time, sorry. Electrical rating is 5 volts, 3 amps, built-in lithium-ion battery. Battery voltage is 3.87 volts. Battery capacity, 4,300 mAh. That's actually pretty good. Mass, approximately 529 grams or 18.7 ounces. So a little under 2 pounds. Operating temperature, 5 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius. Or if you're in the United States, 41 degrees Fahrenheit to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The time is estimated based on charging via the PS5 console's USB Type-C port. So we'll talk a little bit about that some more as we get there. So let's go ahead now and open up the PlayStation Portal. We'll take off the so here it is. It's actually really light for its size, which is pretty cool. You can see holding down the power button to turn it on. So they actually give you a little demonstration here to turn it on. You hold it down, and for 5 seconds, it's saying about 5 seconds, that's assumed, to turn it on until you see the PlayStation screen. We've got the controllers on each side here that are similar to the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller in look, feel, and color scheme, the white with the black. We've got the analog sticks here, the directional pad, your X, circle, triangle, square buttons that are, synonymous to the PlayStation brand. You've got your start button and other stuff here. So let's go ahead here and look at the top. So we've got the power button. We've got this guy here, which looks like it's a sync button. We've got plus and minus here, which is obviously for, volume, typical to most devices. We've got the L1, L2, R1, R2 buttons that are typical to the DualSense controller. The screen is an 8-inch full HD screen. So that is a 1080p screen. It is not 4K, and it has a resolution of 1920 by 1080, and it is touchscreen. So it is a touchscreen, so that's good, and it operates at 60 hertz. So this screen is capable of doing 60 frames per second. Again, you would need a good quality high-speed internet and wireless connection for that. So we'll have to see how that goes. And basically, it is a, decent quality screen, it sounds like. I wish it was 4K, but again, the limitations of a 4K screen when it comes to price and battery are, very important. You would never get a $200 PlayStation Portal device if it had a 4K, OLED screen. Think, let's talk Steam Deck, stuff like that. So flipping it over now to the back, not a lot to see on the back. It is the white with black. I have these on, and they still leave smudge marks. So we've got two ports under the bottom here. A little hard to see. Maybe I'll flip it this way. The light blocks most of it there. But there are two ports right here. Here is a charging port. This is the USB-C charging port, and this is a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. So they are right along the bottom here. So when you charge it, it's going to go right there. Now, let's go ahead here and peel off the screen protector. Very satisfying, as always, to do that. So as you can see me in the background. It is a very nice looking device. Very comfortable in my hand. So let's go ahead now and see if this actually will turn on. Not sure if it's charged or not. If it's not, we will charge it. So I've got a stand here, but I'm not sure if the stand's going to work. Oh yeah, it does. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and power it on. Turns on. Nice. So it is have somewhat of a charge. Most devices do come pre-charged to some extent when they leave the factory. So it is booting up. Now I'm super curious to see how the performance is on this. I've got what I call enterprise grade Wi-Fi in my house. I have a mesh system with ceiling mounted access points. That gives me blanket 2.4 and 5 gigahertz coverage all throughout my house. So let's go ahead here and get this started up. We'll take it as far as we can before we have to connect it to the PlayStation here. So we're going to select English, United States. That's where I'm at. Networks found. So I've got to go ahead here and connect to my wireless, which I'm going to do right now through the magic of the internet. I will fast forward this part. Okay, so we are connected up to the internet here. So now it says the first thing we need to do is update the system software. So I've got this device connected to my home wireless with a solid internet connection. So let's do view details here. System update. So we're going to be updating to version 2.05. That must be the latest firmware version as of today. So how now do you go back? There we go. Okay, so let's update the system software for this device. So let's hit download. Got to accept the end user agreement here. And downloading. So it's only 150 meg download, which is pretty nice. So because this is a, slim, streamlined device that serves a single use case, the actual updating time is fairly quick. So this should not take too long to install the firmware updates. We're already at 20% about now. So I presume what's going to happen here is it's going to update the firmware, and then it's going to have us reboot the device to apply the latest firmware updates. It's got some nice relaxing music to listen to while you're updating firmware. So let's talk a little bit about the Wi-Fi piece while we're waiting for the firmware to update. Wi-Fi is everything with this device. If you don't have a solid Wi-Fi signal in your house, you're going to have non-stop connectivity issues with a device like this. Now, why is that? As I said earlier, the PlayStation Portal streams its content directly from the PlayStation 5. So your PlayStation 5 has to have a solid Wi-Fi connection. Your PlayStation Portal has to have a solid Wi-Fi connection. If either one is lacking, you're going to get lag, connectivity problems, warnings, disconnects, stuff like that. So my recommendation is to make sure your Sony PlayStation 5 and your PlayStation Portal are connected to a solid, high-speed wireless router that provides both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz wireless frequencies. Now, if you're not familiar with what that is, 2.4 gigahertz wireless is slower, but it extends further. If you have 5 gigahertz wireless, it is faster but doesn't go as far and is subject to more interference because you're sending that signal faster than the 2.4. So my recommendation is to make sure your PlayStation 5 is connected to a 5 gigahertz wireless network, and so is your PlayStation 5. Now, there's things called band steering, which let's talk a little bit about. If you have a wireless SSID or the Wi-Fi name, like let's say resident house, if that wireless signal transmits both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz together, you want to make sure that you manually set your PlayStation 5 and your PlayStation Portal to the 5 gigahertz network, which is supported doing that on both devices. And I'll show you that when we get into this system. And I'll show you on the PlayStation 5 when we make sure that the PlayStation 5 has the configuration necessary to stream games to the PlayStation Portal. Now, why do you want that? Like I said, 5 gigahertz is faster. So if you connect a PlayStation Portal or a PlayStation 5 to a single wireless network, that is 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. There's a chance that the wireless router could put the PlayStation or the PlayStation Portal on the 2.4 side and not band steer it to the 5. So there's two ways to mitigate that. One, the recommended option is to have different wireless SSIDs or wireless networks for your 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. For me, I've got Wi-Fi name 2.4 gigahertz. Then I've also got Wi-Fi name 5 gigahertz. The Wi-Fi name 2.4 gigahertz network SSID or wireless name, as you call them, I typically reserve for devices that only support 2.4 gigahertz. That's printers, security cameras, stuff like that. The 5 gigahertz I reserve for my faster devices, iPads, Microsoft Surface, Sony PlayStation, PlayStation Portal, Microsoft Xbox, Nintendo Switch, any iPhone, Android phone, all those devices you want on a 5 gigahertz network. So if you don't know how to manually reconfigure your router to do both separate 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, then manually set your PlayStation network devices and settings to be on the 5 gigahertz network. Now, if you only have a 2.4 gigahertz wireless router, whether it's, a residential grade one or one that's provided wireless through the modem for your internet, then you're going to have to use 2.4. But most devices do include 5 gigahertz. So we're still waiting here for the system software update. As you can see, it's been running now for a good couple of minutes. While doing this, you might want to make sure that your PlayStation Portal is plugged in if it doesn't have sufficient battery charge. Super important. We should be coming up shortly on completing the system software update. And I will restart this as soon as the update completes. Okay, so the firmware update has applied and the device is now restarting. So here we are with the restart. That firmware update took about 10 minutes to update to version 2.05. Always a good recommendation. Keep your device on any latest firmware update. Make sure it's applied. Stick to all general release. Don't use any beta updates or any firmware updates that are not general release unless you're very technical and know what you're doing. Because one wrong firmware update can brick a device, or brick basically means it will never work again. So I generally stick to general release firmware updates across all my devices that I use consistently. So we're updating the PS Link device software here, which is the software that creates a direct connection to the PlayStation 5. Now you can create a direct connection to your PlayStation 5 through the PlayStation Portal, but it is limited to 2.4 gigahertz. So, which I can't guarantee how well that would work. You'd have to be pretty close to the same to the PlayStation 5 for that to work. I probably would never, I don't see myself using that if my understanding of that is correct, what it is. So while we're waiting on this, a lot of people say that you don't need this device. I disagree with that 100%. People say this device is a waste of money. I disagree with that 100%. I see a lot of comments from people, why don't you just use PS Remote Play and play it on your phone? When, not everybody can. If you have a work phone, you can't install the app on that phone because it's managed by your company. It could be. You're limited to the smaller screens, extensive notifications, phone calls, you know, battery life issues. Phones are great. They're amazing. So are tablets, but they're not designed in a way that is, necessarily suitable for streaming video games for a long period of time. Let's use an Apple iPhone, for example. I have an Apple iPhone 11 Pro Max. It has a 6.7-inch screen, which is 2 inches smaller, 2 or 3 inches smaller, than this screen. Okay, that doesn't sound, like a lot, but let's say I play PlayStation Remote, the PS Remote through it. I get notifications constantly. I get phone calls constantly. Do I want that while I'm playing video games? I don't think so. I prefer to have a singular use device, such as the PlayStation Portal, for my video games. So we are restarting again here. That's just my opinion. I mean, I get where people are coming from. Do you really need a PlayStation Portal? Do you need, this, that, and the other thing to play your games on when you can just use the remote play on any device? I mean, if you're comfortable with that and you love it, and I'm all for it. You connect the DualSense controller through Bluetooth to your mobile device and you're good to go. Those considerations aside, it's a good solution. Just for me, I don't know. I like to have a device like this. So update the system software for the PlayStation Portal remote player. So it looks like we have to update it again here. So this is a smaller update, 62 megs. My system software update will complete once the battery level reaches 50%. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead here and get this device plugged in. Okay, so I've gone ahead and plugged in the PlayStation Portal to a power adapter. I am using an Apple iPhone USB-C charger. Now it says the system software update will complete once the battery level reaches 50%. So that answered the one comment I said before about you need to make sure you have sufficient battery charge before updating firmware. So we'll come back as soon as this update applies. Stand by, everybody. Okay, so through the magic of the internet, we are back. The firmware update is now applying. I have the power cable connected and charging up the device. This firmware update shouldn't take very long. And again, just a quick, refresher. When you get a new device, any video game device, or any device for that matter, you always want to make sure that device is fully updated for all firmware according to the manufacturer's instructions. So that sometimes can refer to, the instruction manual for that information, but most devices, modern devices, will update the firmware on their own. And sometimes it does take multiple passes or reboots to make that happen. So we just have to wait here a little longer. We're at 43%. So I do like the screen quality on this device. It looks really cool, really nice. I love the PlayStation, dark tones that they use. So we're at 45% here, jumping to 50, 52. So again, depending on your internet speeds, if you have a slow internet connection, not wireless in your house, two different things. Internet connection, these firmware downloads can take some time. So if you have a 150 meg download, let's say, for example, and you have a slow internet connection, let's say you have DSL, which is the old phone line, looking one, that can take a super long time to download. You could wait up to an hour for 150 meg download to happen. Or even if say it was a gig download, that could be a while. But with, if you're in a populated area and you have what I call high speed internet, which in my opinion, from a technology point of view, is 100 megs up and down. Now that's obviously subject to, discussion and argument, but I don't think 25 megs down, 50 megs down is high speed internet. But depending on what country you're in, the internet's classified different ways. I have a 1 gig connection, so 1 Gbps upload and download through a fiber optic connection. So I have super, what I call super fast internet. So I don't have to worry about, that issue. This here is not internet dependent. This is the installation of the firmware updates. And if I'm lucky, this should be the last pass and update for the device. And then we should be able to bring the device up to its operating system. And I would assume, I'm taking a guess here, have to associate it to my PlayStation account. But we'll find out. If anyone, if you have any questions on your wireless or your internet and need some technical guidance around that kind of stuff, drop me a comment down below. I do this kind of stuff for a living. I would be glad to help you out in that regard and give you some, recommendations on pointers on how your home wireless should be configured to support, multiple devices across different frequencies, the 2.4, the 5, the 6, if you have devices that support it, because that's becoming the new standard soon. It'll be 6 gigahertz wireless. And a fun fact for everybody, 2.4 gigahertz wireless operates on the same frequencies as microwaves. So if you ever turn your microwave on and you're using something on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, sometimes you can actually see that device totally disconnect from the wireless network if you're using it within proximity of your microwave. And that doesn't affect 5 gigahertz or 6 gigahertz. That's just a 2.4 gigahertz thing, because Wi-Fi is nothing but, microwave radiation sent at different frequencies, which is why it's perfectly safe. It's called passive radiation. Wireless is pretty cool technology. It ionizes the air to move data across it. So you have, analog is those sine waves, digital is up, down, up, down, up, down, like blocks. Pretty cool stuff if you're into that kind of thing. And that's how you send data wirelessly back and forth. Every wireless device has cards in them, chips. We should be almost done here. Okay, so that second firmware update has applied and the system has rebooted and we are ready to sign into the PlayStation Network. So I'm obviously not going to show you that now for security reasons, but all you do is use the QR code or sign in manually. So I'm going to do that now, and through the power of the internet, this will be instantaneous for you. Okay, so we've gone ahead and signed in to our Sony PlayStation account. The next thing is to pair this device to a PS5. So we're going to select PS5. I'm going to select mine. It is now paired. Verify you can connect to your PS5. So we'll go ahead and do that shortly here. Use the quick menu to easily change settings. Tap the button to swipe left from top right, center to the screen to open the quick menu. So here is the quick menu. Success! You're all set and ready to go. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you the settings on the PlayStation 5 that you should have enabled while using your PlayStation Portal. So let's do that now. After this shows us a little screen here. So there we are, it is connecting. So I'm going to switch views now and show you the settings that are required on your Sony PlayStation. Okay, so there are 4 things that you need to do with your Sony PlayStation 5 to ensure it is ready for remote play with the PlayStation Portal. So the first thing you want to do is go up to Settings, which is on the top right, and we want to go to System. We want to go to System Software,
System software update and settings. We want to update our system software. If it's fully up to date, it'll show you fully up to date. If it's not, make sure you update it to the newest version. The second thing you want to do is verify network connectivity with your Sony PlayStation 5. So we are connected to the wireless and the internet and signed in to the PlayStation Network. Now, one other thing that I highly recommend you do is if you go to settings and set up internet connection, you'll see the wireless that you're connected to. If you press the options button and go to Wi-Fi frequency bands, you can set it to 5 gigahertz. Now I'll go ahead and do that here. This will disconnect from my Wi-Fi, reconnect it back, and force 5 gigahertz. This is back to what I was saying before about if you were on a dual band wireless network, that's one that's 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. You want to make sure you're connected to the 5 gigahertz frequency. So that's done. The third thing we want to do is make sure the device is not going to ever power itself totally off, because if you can't reach the device, you have to manually turn it on before you can play it. So to do that, we're going to go into System and we're going to go into Power Saving. So we need to go to Features Available in Rest Mode. So we need to make sure that the PlayStation 5 stays connected to the internet and enable turning on the PS5 from the network. So while in rest mode, you can turn on your PS5 remotely using the PlayStation app or Remote Play. So that's done. Set time until PS5 enters rest mode. During media playback, 4 hours. And while playing games, the settings is for when you're on the home screen or when you're in a game or app and you're not doing anything. I'm going to up it to 2 hours for me. And then next is remote play. You need to go in and enable remote play, which we've done, and make sure that your device is linked. And that's it. When your device is linked to remote play, the PlayStation 5 is connected to the internet and the network, and you're ensured that you have a solid internet connection. We should be good to try it out on the PlayStation Portal. So let's do that now. We're going to switch back to the PlayStation Portal. Stand by, everyone.
Okay, so we've gone ahead and configured the Sony PlayStation 5 for remote play with the PlayStation Portal. So I'm going to go ahead here and power on the PlayStation Portal. I went ahead and shut it down because it was charging. So let's go ahead here and power it on. And let's watch it connect to the PlayStation 5. So to recap what I did with the PlayStation 5, we made sure that the firmware was up to date. We enabled rest mode on the PlayStation 5 with internet connectivity and made sure remote play was enabled. You need to make sure that your PlayStation, it goes into rest mode, because if it powers itself off, it won't be listening for those connections. So to unlock, press the PS5 button. Connecting, and it connected. That was super quick. So we are ready to play. So that was super easy. So the Tech Gamer 1982 connected using remote play. So I am connected to the PlayStation in my gaming room via Wi-Fi. So as you can see, here are some of the games that are installed on my PlayStation 5. Let's go ahead and try Final Fantasy VII Remake here. Just gotta hit the button and let's see how this works. Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of my favorite games. So it might be a little hard to hear the sound here. Let's turn it up a little bit. Again, you're hearing this through a lapel mic, so the sound may not be the greatest. Press any button to continue. And let's go ahead and start up a new game here. Default. We're just going to put it on normal. I'm not actually going to play it, so I'm more interested in how the quality is. So this is streaming from a Sony PlayStation 5. I don't see any lag or delays. See if we can skip some of this here. So you can see when you press this button, you have the different options available. We're going to go ahead here and skip. We're going to see if we get to the game. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. All right. So there we're going.
Who goes there? You're up.
So let's get through these.
You're coming with us. Nice and easy. Don't think so.
Nice inputs. There's like zero lag whatsoever. Great quality here. So this is, we'll do one more fight here. Thanks, Jesse. We'll knock these guys around real quick here. So they're just giving you. Yeah, ATV is charged. And there we go. So this is awesome. And it is working exactly as I expected it to. So to recap here, we went ahead and unboxed the Sony PlayStation Portal, checked it out, updated the firmware, connected it to the Wi-Fi, connected it up to the Sony PlayStation 5. We validated configurations with the Sony PlayStation 5 to support the PlayStation Portal and Remote Play, got it all connected, and tested it out with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Totally awesome. I am super pumped to use this PlayStation Portal. If anyone has any questions or comments or needs any help with the configuration of your PlayStation Portal, your Sony PlayStation 5, or just needs some general guidance on connecting them to the internet, definitely drop me a comment down below and I will do my best to help you out. As always, if you could click that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel, that would be totally awesome. I will see everyone around. Keep on gaming.